here is part 3 of this theory series on what if Peyton Manning did not sign with the Broncos. In the second part, I talked about what if he signed with the Titans. And the third one now, I'm going to talk about what if he signed with the Cardinals. So, let's get into this. So, the Cardinals going into 2012, they had Kevin Kolb, who they traded a whole bunch of picks from the Eagles to pick up, and a couple of Draymond. They would be gone off the team after this year, as they would trade for Carson Palmer in 2013. So, the Cardinals are in a pretty damn good position, at least in terms of quarterbacks that want to pick up Peyton, and the other quarterbacks would largely have no effect for the rest of the league, so they're irrelevant. So, let's get into 2012. So, for the Cardinals with Peyton, remember the Cardinals in 2012, they started off 4-0. They looked really good, but then they lost all but one of their remaining games and finished 5-11. But with Peyton there, the Cardinals, especially at that 4-0 start, would play very good with Peyton's elite season, and the Cardinals would go 12-4, their best record in the 16-game schedule, as the Broncos, just like in 2012, would regress to 7-9. So in the updated 2012 stands in the AFC, the Patriots have the number 1 seed, the Texans move up to the 2nd seed, the Bengals move up to the 3rd seed, the Chargers make the playoffs with the 4th seed, the Colts stay at the 5th seed, and the Ravens fall all the way down to the 6th seed. In the NFC, the Cardinals now have the number 1 overall seed as the Falcons fall to the 2nd seed, and the Seahawks stay where they're at, but the 49ers falling all the way down to the 5th seed. So, in the divisional round, the Cardinals will now host the Seahawks. That would be a very close game, especially since Peyton would struggle, but I think the Cardinals would do just enough to hold on for the win. So the conference championship would be the Cardinals hosting the 49ers. But at this point, Peyton was still struggling, and the 49ers were a much better team. I mean, remember, they came up 17-0 on the Falcons. So the 49ers would get the win this time around. So it would be Super Bowl 47 would be the 49ers and the Texans, like in my theory about what if he signed with the Titans. And that's just like in that theory, I'm picking the 49ers to beat the Texans. So now we got to get to our first part of the offseason for 2013. Because remember, in our timeline, the Cardinals traded for Carson Palmer in 2013, but since now they have Peyton, they don't need to trade for him. So where would he be traded to? Look at all the other teams' possibilities. I considered he would be traded to the Bills. So now let's get into 2013. In 2013, remember the Cardinals just missed the playoffs going 10-6, and a lot of it probably was to do with Carson Palmer. He put up 24 touchdowns, yes, but he also threw 22 interceptions. Peyton would throw half of that and double almost the touchdowns. So with Peyton's elite MVP season, the Cardinals would go 15-1. Incredible, only losing to the Seahawks one time. As the Broncos with Tebow would struggle as they finished 8-8, and the Carson Palmer-led Bills would finish 6-10 as they did in real life. So in the updated 2013 stands in the NFC, the Cardinals still move up to number 1 seed, as the Cowboys make the playoffs as the 3rd seed, and the Seahawks fall down to the 5th seed, and the 49ers fall down to the 6th seed. And the AFC, the Patriots have the number 1 seed, the Chiefs move up to the 2nd seed, the Chargers make the playoffs as the 5th seed, and the Ravens make the playoffs as the 6th seed. Now we get into the NFC side, as it'll be a rematch from the conference championship last year, as the 49ers visit the Cardinals once again, this time in the divisional round, but Peyton playing much better than the Cardinals being a better team. This time we'll get the revenge as they beat the 49ers. So the conference championship will be the Cardinals hosting the Panthers. And remember, the Cardinals destroyed the Panthers earlier in the year, and now with Peyton, they're going to do it just again as they crush the Panthers. So Super Bowl 48 would be the Patriots and the Cardinals. The Super Bowl that the NFL, like I said in the last video about the 49ers, would want badly. Now the game would probably be closer since the Cardinals weren't as good as the 49ers, but I think Peyton and the Cardinals would still hold on to get the win, to get their first title since 1947 and ending the league's longest drought. So going into 2014, the Cardinals, now as the defending champs, now going to host the Super Bowl this year, would like to do that again. Peyton and the Cardinals would have a strong start just like they did in real life, but remember, halfway through the year, Palmer suffered a season-ending injury, and the Cardinals collapsed from 9-1 to 11-5 and one and done in the playoffs. Now, Peyton would struggle, remember. He would struggle the second half of the year, but his stats were still significantly better than all the Cardinals' backup quarterbacks they had at that point the last half of the year without Palmer. So despite having a struggle in Peyton, the Cardinals still play really well as they go 12-4 as the Broncos bomb out to 5-11, and the Palmer-led Bills still finish 9-7 as they do in our timeline. So in the updated 2014 standings in the AFC, the Colts move up to the second seed. The Chiefs make the playoffs as the 4th seed, and the Chargers make the playoffs as the 6th seed. And the NFC, the Cowboys get the number 1 seed, as the Cardinals move up to the 2nd seed. The Packers fall down to the 3rd seed. The Seahawks fall down to the 5th seed. So in the playoffs, in the divisional round, the Cardinals would host the Packers, and unfortunately for the Cardinals, Peyton would fail, maybe one and done, as the defending champs would lose to the Packers, which would make the NFC Championship the Cowboys hosting the Packers. Now, of course, the Packers beat them in real life, remember, so that will continue on here. So Super Bowl 49 would be a Super Bowl that the league so wanted, the Patriots and the Packers. And this one, remember, the Seahawks almost beat the Patriots too if it wasn't for them running it instead of throwing it. But with Aaron Rodgers being the superior quarterback and the Packers still being a very good team, this time around, I think the Packers would get to beat the Patriots to get their first title in 4 years. So in the 2015 offseason, the thing for the Bills is, remember, they picked up Tyrod Taylor from in free agency, but since they got Palmer, they have no need to pick him up. So instead, he would sign with the Texans. So going into 2015 for the Cardinals, it's really weird. The team actually in this real life timeline would get better because remember, they went 13-3 in 2015 with a really good defense and explosive offense with Palmer having like one of his best seasons. But Peyton, remember, would struggle really badly at this point. So the Cardinals would really bottom out as they would finish 6-10, their first losing season in 5 years. Meanwhile, the Broncos, of course, would bottom out, of course, as the schedule this time around is not in their favor as they finished 3-13. And the Carson Palmer-led Bills, with his incredible season, and especially even better than Tyrod Taylor, they would go 11-5. Meanwhile, the Texans, led with Tyrod Taylor, they would do better, but they would only improve by 1 game to finish 10-6. In the updated 2015 standings, the Bengals now have the number 1 seed. As the Chiefs move up to the 2nd seed, the Bills make the playoffs as the 3rd seed. The Jets make the playoffs as the 5th seed. The Patriots fall all the way down to the 6th seed. And the NFC, the Vikings move up to the 2nd seed. The Seahawks move up to the 3rd seed. And the Lions make the playoffs as the 6th seed. And due to lucky breaks with having Andy Dalton back, playing the Jets in the divisional round and playing the Bills in the AFC Championship, the Super Bowl would be the Bengals and the Panthers this time around. And of course, the Bengals, with that strong defense that the Broncos also had, and a much better quarterback in Andy Dalton, and of course, if not, A.J. McCarron, who was still better than Peyton, I think the Bengals would get the win to get their first title in 47-year history. And that's where 2016 will wrap up as Peyton would retire. Now, the Broncos, like I said, would get their quarterback in 2016, but now that they're in the two-way tie between them and the Titans instead, maybe they would get Carson Wentz or Jared Goff instead. Meanwhile, for the Bills, unfortunately for them, Palmer would begin to struggle these next 2 years, but hey, still better than Tyrod Taylor, so maybe they would play good still during this stretch. And the Texans would struggle. They would do probably better than with Osweiler, but they probably would still get Watson in 2017. But the main focus is the Cardinals. They would be worse off at the end of 2015 than they were in real life. But hey, they made the playoffs 3 times instead of 2. They made to the NFC Championship twice instead of 1. And they made a Super Bowl, which they won it and got their first title in 67 years. So for quarterback situation, unfortunately, it's not going to be good for them for next year. Maybe in 2017 they can get Watson, Mahomes, or Trubisky or someone like that. But I doubt they'll get Murray because I doubt they're going to go for a quarterback for that long. But we'll have to see what happens if I continue this theory in the future. But hey, at least they got a title. And with that, it's just a theory. An NFL theory. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed part 3 of this theory if Peyton Manning signed with the Cardinals. And now it's time for part 4. See you guys tomorrow for the final part where Peyton Manning signs with the Dolphins. See you guys then.